Well, this is going to be a slightly different version of the view from here to what you might be used to. I said some time ago that I wasn't going to speak about diversity and inclusion very much anymore, although I have spoken at a couple of events since, including a Sapphire event called Leading Not Lagging. Do go check that out on Pride and Diversity's social media. But what I wanted to talk about is that in October, I turned 60. Where did that time go? I don't know. And not only do I turn 60 in October, but yesterday I made the decision to do something that I didn't think I would do for about another 20 years. I decided to sell my aircraft, my sailplane, affectionately known as Peggy. I bought that sailplane 4 years ago because I felt like flying was one place where I felt not stressed and I felt like I could achieve things, and it also was my mental health savior. It took my mind away from everything else, because soaring flight takes an immense amount of brain power. And if you want to find people who are good at working on complex problems, or dealing with complex schedules, or knowing how to prioritize work, then find yourself a glider pilot, especially a competition glider pilot. But I digress. I decided to sell that airplane, and although last night was a little bit of a sad night, and I'm not drinking alcohol now for nearly a year, and I certainly felt like having a drink last night, because I was at that point feeling a little sad. But today I'm excited, and I want to share with you why I'm excited. Some of you know my backstory, know that I had my own business for about 12 years, and recently I happened to restart it, operating it on the weekends, and I'll speak some more about that in a minute. And I happened to pull out the booking system that we use to book training and tours, which is what I used to deliver. And the last quarter of my worst year, the year before the perfect storm completely, rearranged my entire life, resulted in the loss of my 2 homes, and the loss of my marriage, and the loss of all my personal wealth. In that last quarter, our worst quarter, I made $175,000. Now, all of that money went in that perfect storm, and I don't think that I will ever be able to get that business back to something like that. I'm excited that I'm trying. Let me also clarify that this now, rather than a full-time business, is a part-time business. It's something I'm doing on weekends and on annual vacation. So it's slightly different. I'm working as well. And I want to speak about work, and I'm not going to name my employer. You all know who my employer is. But, I have to say that I'm really, really, really excited about this job that I have with them as a change manager, because for the first time in a very long time, I'm being challenged by the work that I do. That hasn't happened to me in 30 or 40 years. I'm used to being really good at what I do, and I'm used to being kind of the expert, or developing into the expert very rapidly. And you might have seen that if you've been lucky enough to be in my training sessions when I first moved to Sydney, and I know some of you have. But I'm really challenged by this work. It's it's an environment that's completely new to me. Not change management. That's not new to me. Not entirely new to me anyway. The type of change management that I've done has been quite different to this. So I've worked on cultural kind of stuff mostly. and I've also worked on change management in the kind of environmental sector. Lots of stakeholder engagement kind of work, lots of collaborative co-design, but none of it in the sector in which I'm working now or the industry in which I'm working now. It's challenging, it's exciting, and what's more, my present managers are really interested in making me the best change manager they can make me in this particular sector. And that's, at 59 years of age, that is exciting. That's really exciting. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, my term with them, my contract with them comes to an end around the end of the year, and I'm awfully hopeful that I can stay on there. But if I can't, I know that there's going to be an opportunity for me, because I'm just going to make sure that I'm damn good at this job by the time that time comes around. Well, hopefully well before that time comes around, and I can demonstrate just that I am really good at that job. And then at 60 years of age, I don't know about you, but I intend to be one of those people that's working until I can't work anymore. So, the government was recently talking about raising the retiring age to 70. I'm in, thank you, I'll take that, definitely. Now, I don't know if I'll be working in the corporate world or if I'll be working for myself, but I'll be working. And so, when that December or end of year time rolls around, and whether I get a new opportunity with my present employer or I get an opportunity with somebody else, I'm really excited about continuing to work. And for the first time also, because I've gotten away from Sydney and I've had that time flying and doing other things, I'm out in Gunnedah these days and working from home for a corporate office in Sydney, which is something, by the way, that I would like to continue doing. So, when I do come around to looking for other opportunities, I do hope there are some where employers have said, you've proved you can work from home. Why don't you just keep doing that? Now, I'm realistic, that might not happen, but if it doesn't, that's okay too. But that would be my preference, because I'm really loving my life out here. Now, the other thing is that, as a trans person, having gone through what I went through, I spent 6 years in Sydney in the corporate world trying to get ahead. And just, I have to say, it wasn't always a great experience. And, I think I've learned a lot, but I think organisations have learned a lot from me as well, no matter how those things have gone, because organisations really are still not very inclusive in terms of trans people when it comes to recruiting and career advancement. And you've heard me speak about that all the time. It's also the subject of that Sapphire event that I spoke about, Leading Not Lagging. So if you haven't seen that, go and take a look at it. I'm sure it'll still be online somewhere. And, that experience hasn't always been great, working in the corporate world of Sydney. And yet I'm excited. I'm really, really excited, because I want to keep working for a lot longer. And I'm now finally in a situation where I'm starting to put away some money. I'm starting to save into my super. I'm starting to earn extra incomes through my weekend business. And so I really am getting an opportunity to get ahead. But what's more is I intend to use that opportunity to make opportunities for other marginalised peoples. So I'm not in a position to do a lot about that now, other than what I already do, which is the trans employment program. But I do intend to keep helping people from marginalised communities. Now, I've got a very long way to go. I need a four-wheel drive vehicle in order to properly conduct my business going forward. For the moment it's not an issue, but sometime before June next year, I have to have a four-wheel drive vehicle. And even with selling my sailplane, by the time I pay down some debt and a couple of other things, and keep this business going, I won't have sufficient funds to buy that vehicle unless I really, really work hard. Now, a friend who's moving has very kindly offered to donate a vehicle to me, and I really hope that does happen because it will help me immensely. And she knows who she is, and I'm just absolutely, totally gobsmacked that somebody would do that. Getting emotional. But, it's made me so excited now that I can get ahead. But you know what's interesting? You know what's really, really interesting? Is that I've had fabulous managers before. In fact, one previous manager, I've told her, you are the best manager I have ever seen, not only dealt with, but seen in 40 years. And she was a godsend, and had she been allowed to be my manager for some time, I'd be in this position a lot earlier. But that's by the by. My present managers are very pragmatic, and just saying, words like, I'm going to make you the best change manager in this organisation. And, that's saying something. So I'm really looking forward to doing that work. But what's more is because I'm now working from home, I can operate in an area where there are opportunities on the weekend for the specific kind of business that I'm running. Now, I don't want to talk too much about that business just yet because, I don't want to drum up some competition. But, it's something I've done for a very long time. It's an element of my previous business that happens to be in a really good position at the moment due to COVID. And, being out here where I am, I'm now very central to a couple of population centres where I wasn't before. So I can deliver training on weekends in those centres and, earn, decent money. So at 59 years of age, for someone who's lost everything and has almost no super, that's a big thing. So, it's interesting that it took an organisation to really challenge me to find a space where I wasn't any longer, the expert or even particularly very good at this particular aspect of change management or anything else. It's a sector I haven't worked in before. And it took them to sort of say, we're going to, work with you to make you really good at this. And it took them allowing me to work from essentially, 4.5 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours drive from Sydney. It took that for this opportunity to come. But you know what else it took? It took a never say die attitude from me. I walked away, literally walked away from this business previously when I shouldn't have. When my marriage collapsed and I lost all my money and everything else, I still had my vehicle. I still had my four-wheel drive vehicle. Granted, it was out of action because it had, it had a lot of wear and tear from that previous year's work, and it needed probably $10,000 worth of work. But had I kept it and had I started doing what I'm doing now, which is to go, you know what, there are opportunities out there and I'm going to go and find them, I wouldn't have been in the position where I am now in terms of financially. But I also wouldn't have had the opportunity to grow into me. This is what's interesting about transition. So when I'm in the male role, I was quite, very confident. Being selected in the Australian Defence Force, confidence is one of the major things they look for. It's a competition, after all, to be selected. And my confidence got completely shot post-transition, completely shot, especially when you consider what I've been through as well, not just the transition. And each of the little experiences that I gained in Sydney, but more importantly, all of the fabulous people that I met, you all know who you are. A lot of you are CEOs of very large corporations. And some of you are, executives in those corporations or executive managers in various places. So you've all, led by example in a sense. You've all welcomed me. You've all been interested in what I've been saying. You've all been interested in me and what I do. And I want to thank you all because, although I could sit here and say, woe is me, I'm going to be 60 next year and my job ends in November or December, whenever it is, I'll have to look. And, I had a tough time getting a job last time. I could just go down a big rabbit hole and never come out. But instead, what I decided to do was say, okay, there are opportunities out there. I'm going to grab them. I have, and it's making a difference. I then said, do you know what? You've got, $20,000 sitting there in an aircraft. It has been your mental health savior. You've had 4 years of a fabulous time. You've met some amazing female pilots from all over the world. Maybe it's time to say goodbye to that. Take that 20,000 and put it to work so it can make a difference in your retirement. Because, as Grant Cardone says, don't own it if you can rent it or lease it. And I can rent or lease a glider anytime I want to. So, I'm feeling really excited, even though I I put my aircraft up for sale yesterday. I'm feeling really, really excited, and I want to thank, obviously, the friend who's made that such a generous offer, for the offer, but also, my current managers, my spectacularly fabulous previous manager. You know who you are. And all of those people that I met through Pride and Diversity and through Sydney Gay Lesbian Mardi Gras and everywhere else. One of the things about the kind of work that we do in diversity and inclusion, especially the kind of work that I used to do, and still do to some extent, is we're constantly talking about how we as members of the marginalised communities are treated poorly by those of the dominant community, and therefore we have fewer opportunities, and our lives are made much more difficult. And that is fact, right? There's no denying that at all. And when you take into account the way the health system treats us, how difficult it is for a trans person to get a job, how difficult it is for a trans person to advance their career, all of these things. When you talk about them all of the time, as I did, as an expert of that experience, you start to believe that there is no way to overcome that disadvantage unless the dominant culture or the dominant community gives you a chance. Well, that's not entirely true, right? It's not entirely true. Yes, you're starting from a lower start point. Yes, it's much more difficult. Yes, the world treats us poorly. But here's what I say all the time to the people who I assist through the trans employment program when I'm coaching them, is I say, so what? In other words, so what are you going to do about that? And the answer is, ultimately, when you think about it, I can't do anything about that, not as an individual. Sure, I can be an expert of that experience and I can speak to the world about the realities and I can help them discover just how how difficult it is for trans people compared to cis people. I can speak about how difficult it is for other marginalised groups through their experiences. All of that is true, but I can't actually make a real difference overall. I can chip away at it. This is why we say diversity and inclusion is a marathon, not a sprint. Because you've got to change a culture, and we're experiencing, and have been experiencing for the last few years, the kickback, if you like, the pushback from marriage equality. And I want to talk about that a little bit more as well. I'll come back to that point, see if I can remind myself to do so. What the point I'm trying to make is that when you spend so much time speaking about those negative things, it makes you believe there is no chance. I have no chance. And that's not true. So, you can't do anything about changing the world, if you like, apart from that chipping away. But what can you do as an individual? But what you can do as an individual is say, well, I'm not going to let that affect me. I'm not going to let that stop me. And so it is that when I was unemployed for 11 months, despite doing fabulous work elsewhere, I decided, well, you know what, if 1,000 job applications isn't enough, then I'll do 1,050. And I'll get professional career transition support. And I'll, get people to help me to analyse why a particular organisation didn't employ me despite me having this professionally written CV and so forth. And if 2,000 job applications isn't enough, let's make it 3,000. And ultimately, 3,900 job applications and some later, I got a job, right? Not only did I get a job, I got a job where people are saying to me, understand what you went through. I know how difficult this is for you. We're going to make you really good at this. My parents weren't rich. I grew up in a very, very, ordinary household. Sometimes quite a poor household. And I saw my dad's business ideas come and go. I saw my mum and dad working 3 jobs. And that instilled in me a work ethic that saw me working, 103-hour weeks and things like that at certain points in my life. And, ultimately I was able to build, a lovely life with 2 houses, one beautiful big house on acreage, and a business that was employing a bunch of people. But when that perfect storm arrived, and that included my transition, I basically lost it. I just gave up and put all of my energy into becoming me, which is really, really important. But at that point in time, I could have made smarter decisions, and I didn't. And that's okay too. But right now, I'm refusing to believe my own stories that the world treats us poorly, therefore we have no opportunity. I don't know that it's ever been my story, but I think you know what I mean. When you continue to talk about all the negatives, it brings you down, and you lose hope, you lose faith, you lose ambition. I hope that there's a trans person or someone from another marginalised group transgender, diverse or otherwise, who's watching this and going, do you know what? She's right. It's bloody hard, but it's not impossible. As I was saying, I say to my trans employment program people who are coming to me, they say, oh, I can't get work and I can't do this and this is difficult and that's difficult and they treat me badly and I get this and treated like this and blah, blah, blah. And it's all true. I've been there. 3,900 job applications despite doing award-winning work in my previous job. 2 jobs. Awards in 2 previous jobs. Recognised for outstanding work. 3,900 job applications. That's not fair. But I got a job. I did get a job. And what's more, I got a job where I don't actually have a lot of experience in that, or any experience in that sector. Alright, I have change management experience, but I don't have experience in that sector. And it's a challenge. I'm learning every minute of every day. And I'm also learning to undo all of the bad messaging that I've created for myself just by being the expert on my own lived experience. And so this is another point I think about asking trans people to speak on their lived experience all the time without rewarding them for the effort, right? This is one reason why it's so bad. Don't do that. If you want me or somebody else to speak on my experience at your multi-billion-dollar corporation where you're an executive earning $150,000, $250,000 a year, don't you think you should pay me or the others? And by paying us, you're actually saying what you have to tell us and your experience is worth something to me and for others to hear. And what that does is sends me a message that I am worthy and my experience is worthy. Now, the point I wanted to come back to was about pushback post-marriage equality. You might not kind of get this if you haven't been really paying attention to politics, but I'm in the final year of my political science degree, so this is actually something that I've written about. And I can't pull the references out of my head, I'm sorry to say, but those of you who know me will know I'll have a big file of references here. Look, many of you know we're experiencing this attack on the transgender diverse community and others as a result of the marriage equality decision. We are seen as an easy target, as a target that can be used to foment disagreement in the community and therefore start debates about, gender and sexuality and therefore marriage and so forth. And even governments and government ministers are getting involved in that. And that isn't actually normal in the sense of historically normal. In Australia, there were 2 areas that governments didn't used to get involved in. And those who've been around a long time will know this. They're the church and the family. Those things were off limits to politics, right? Sure, they leveraged the notion of church and notion of family, as being, solid building blocks of a community, but they didn't interfere in the workings of either. When we invited the government, as a community, when we invited the government to legislate on marriage for same-sex couples, we invited them into the space that they always had kept out of. There's something to learn from that in diversity and inclusion as well. And it comes around to a point that I've raised a number of times now. And I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm denigrating your diversity and inclusion initiatives. And you know what? I am. But I guess I'm not sorry about that. Because What I see now, after 10 years of LGBTI diversity and inclusion programs, is a lot more focus on, the self-serving, self kind of congratulatory messaging. In social media, posting about, look how great we are, we won this award, or we have these people working for us, or this person's our CEO, or our CEO spoke on this subject matter. Look, it's all great stuff, but that's year one diversity and inclusion. That's like month one diversity and inclusion. If you've been doing LGBTQ plus inclusion for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and you're still congratulating yourself because your CEO spoke about, some topic or other to your people, that's nothing to be congratulating yourself about, right? What I want to see is your CEO saying, who are the disadvantaged people? Are they disadvantaged by anything that we do? Where are they most disadvantaged by anything that we do in terms of our recruiting, our career advancement, or our treatment of our customers? And what are we doing about it this year? And then don't tell anybody about it except the people who are affected. You don't even have to tell them. You know what? If I'm applying for a job at your place and I get the job, even though I might not be the best candidate in a process that doesn't select best candidates anyway because it's a flawed process, then I know that your organisation has done something because I didn't have to apply for 3,900 jobs this time. Do you understand? Stop with the self-congratulation about things that you've been doing for the last 7, 8, 10 years. It's not news anymore. It's certainly not something worthy of congratulation. Make a difference. Anyway, I've made quite a few points, and I've drifted off into talking about diversity and inclusion. But what I really wanted to talk about is I'm excited.